Hi everyone, welcome to another G News update. Today we are going to hear from the Reserve Bank about its new position on bank capital requirements. That's the amount of capital that a bank has got to hold before it can operate in New Zealand. And since about 2019, the Reserve Bank has actually been trying to increase the amount of capital that banks have to hold so that if there was a once in 200-year shock or problem, that it wouldn't be down to us to bail out the banks, and the banks would actually be able to pay us out and not fold under those conditions and lead to a situation where the depositors, that's you and me, lose all of our life savings. And suddenly everything that you've got in the bank is gone. The banks haven't lost anything, but you have. So today, the banks want those capital limits lowered, and they want to put you at risk as a depositor. If there was a big crisis, they want to get that down, so they transfer the risk back to you. Now, this is something that the New Zealand Initiative, an Atlas Network think tank, has actually been raging on about for years. And there's been a big public battle between Adrian Orr at the Reserve Bank and Mr. Partridge at the New Zealand Initiative as they clash in newspaper articles over the years about this, because Partridge is basically fighting for the banks who are making an insane amount of greedy profits out of all of us, and most of that's being shipped offshore. So that's the kind of the recipe. They want those capital limits that the banks have to hold lowered so that we have more risk, and the Reserve Bank will come out with what the current position is. Now, in case you didn't know, the rollout of increasing the capital limits was going on over about a 7 or 8 year period, and we still have about a 3.5% amount to add as we slowly roll this out. So it looks like what's going to happen is that's not going to happen. It's going to be delayed because right now the Pink Pantsuit and Christopher Luxon are in a spot of bother with the economy. And what they want to do is stimulate the housing market again, which is, as you know, unproductive and really just us selling more and more houses. A few people like landlords who got a massive tax break, driving up the debt, I guess, in order to cover those big election bribes in 2023. So they can flourish and make more money. A few people can make so much more money if we can get the house prices up. And Sir John had been going on and on about how you don't have an economy that, or people that are happy unless they're making huge profits out of houses and putting them out of reach, really, of all of our children, so that none of them can actually buy a house anymore. So that's the game that's on today. And of course, in order for the banking network of foreign banks in New Zealand to be interested in loaning money to people at any kind of affordable rate, they've got to have those conditions like capital limits lowered so that they want to lend money. Otherwise, why should they bother? They're basically doing all right anyway. The other area that Christopher Luxon is interested in is selling off the best houses that we've got in this country, like all the coastal property, all the places that are worth over a few $1 million, and see if we can attract some rich people here that will be interested in investing in New Zealand, but in return, they get to snap up all the best properties around the place so that if your children do well, they don't have anywhere like that to live because it's already been purchased. And you can't go to those places, usually because there's a big security fence there now. And maybe people with completely different values that don't know about the Treaty of Waitangi, they kind of become the majority of people in this country. So anyway, the idea that very wealthy foreigners should come here and buy up New Zealand is a great idea, according to Christopher Luxon, because it can stimulate some kind of investment in New Zealand, and the only thing we have to do is sell out our very own land to these people because they're wealthy. Unfortunately, the sticking point there is that New Zealand First and ACT are arguing, and they're just like fighting like cats and dogs behind the scene at each other's throats, scratching and clawing at each other. Well, Christopher Luxon's main spin about this is it's complicated, and it'll just be a matter of a few weeks, so just watch that space. While in the background there's this sack with Davy Boy and Winston in it, clawing at each other, moving in the background. So those two big moves are moves that have long been signalled as Christopher Luxon trying to raise the price of houses again, because it's about the only plan that the National Party have to grow the economy, apart from bringing in more and more people from overseas, because basically they're going to want somewhere to live, they're going to want somewhere to go and shop, they're going to need to use public services. So you can call that growth, but it's really just consumption through population growth. And Christopher Luxon's desperate right now to claim that all sorts of things that happen normally are somehow the result of his incredible work and the incredible business nous of this guy that ran a airline for a few years and sold soap before that. So yeah, basically it's all very uninspiring, and everyone can see what he's doing, that he wants house prices to go up. It was quite curious this morning because on Radio New Zealand Morning Report, Corin Dan drew Christopher Luxon's attention to the fact that it was only about a week ago that Chris Bishop was actually saying, look, I'm pleased that house prices have stayed where they are and I'd really like to see them go down. And that was a stark contrast to Sir John, who had been saying, look, we're not happy unless our house value is going up. And if you want the economy to grow, then house prices need to go up. So which one was it? Was it Chris Bishop or was it Sir John? And there was Christopher Luxon in the middle between the two of them, trying to wriggle out of it this morning on Morning Report. And basically what he said is, I agree with this part of Chris Bishop's argument. He wants things to be a little bit more productive. And then he kind of like slipped around everything. And unfortunately, Radio New Zealand just let that all move on. But as you can see, it's basically the case. Chris Bishop's only built 45 houses in 2 years. So all their talk about how Labor can't deliver looks pretty interesting now. Christopher Luxon's talking about stimulating construction, and he's running around media this morning talking about construction and construction jobs and projects and new jobs that will come from these projects. But if you look into each of those projects, you'll just find that all that's happened is that there's a bunch of pipeline projects that have been around for maybe 2 or 3 years now, maybe longer, and National have realised that they're not doing anything, so they may as well put their arms around existing projects and rely on public ignorance, that no one will look into the fact this is not a new project, this is an old project, but we'll just claim some big number, like $6 billion worth of projects are going to happen before Christmas that were going to happen anyway. But aren't we incredible? Look at us. And then they dress up in some high-vis vests and they put on some hats, they get some spades, and they go along to these projects that were going to open anyway and make out that somehow or another they are the ones that are getting things done. And it's all a big con job. It's all a big dress-up costume party. And unfortunately, nobody in the media has the chops to go in and say, hey, look, this is kind of like the emperor's new clothes. It's just a hard hat and a high vis and, a kind of a prop. You've got a spade that you've never actually done a proper day's work in your life. But here you are with your spade. You don't even know how to hold it properly. And you're turning the sod because it's like you're the hard-working man. Well, they're not. I'm just going to cough. Which is appropriate because it does make us all feel a bit sick, doesn't it? Over and over, this performance as if we're all idiots, but we're not. So all of that was in the news this morning, and we also heard quite a bit about Gaza. All of a sudden, it's becoming pretty clear that Christopher Luxon isn't going to do anything about the two-state solution, and he's just going to wait because David Boy's got him by the balls, and he's not allowed to make a decision today. He's going to have to wait for weeks while people starve, while there's a famine, and he can get away with some kind of like, this is my opinion, this is Benjamin Netanyahu's opinion, he's entitled to his, I'm entitled to mine, game in our media, as long as he doesn't support Palestinian statehood today, as long as he sits on his hands and takes no action and is all just talk, well, yeah, maybe he can get away with that. He's got to get permission from Winston. He doesn't know anything about what's happening in world affairs, and he got caught out this morning. He was trying to make out that he knew all about these West Bank settlements that are going on and how we object to that because it fundamentally puts an end to the possibility of a two-state solution if the West Bank gets divided into two parts, which is what Israel's doing in real time. And when Corin Dan asked him about the similar kind of thing happening as part of that district, well, Christopher Luxon hadn't been briefed, and it became quite clear when he said, well, you'll have to talk to the Minister of Foreign Affairs about that Christopher Luxon was a vacuum, an empty space, a man that didn't know, a man that didn't care to know, a man that hadn't put any time into it, someone that hadn't done his work, no homework there, run out of time, probably slept on the job, maybe he was a bit busy with something else. He was over on TVNZ Breakfast this morning, and the first thing he asked Chris Chang was how good he was at playing air guitar. So maybe Christopher Luxon had been watching Air Guitar Nation or some other air guitar program, but what he wasn't doing was looking into Gaza and the fact that there was a 26-nation joint statement made which had all of our allies signed up to it, like Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Italy, France. All of these nations that were awake and actually cared and had proper leaders had signed on to this agreement that said you can't keep doing this, Israel. But New Zealand's name was conspicuously missing from this list. And I guess it's kind of symptomatic of the fact that with Davey Boy and Winston running New Zealand and being the real Prime Minister at the moment, that this Luxon character who's pretending to be our Prime Minister is out of the loop. He's got no good excuse. He doesn't know why we haven't signed it, didn't even know about it. He kind of just makes out, oh, there's all these kind of joint statements, you know, there's 10 of them a day. But there isn't. It's just like Luxon is busy doing air guitar and talking about that on TVNZ. I'm going to cough again. Last night I went along to the Piritahi Marae and I listened to the two candidates that are the most likely contenders out of 5 contenders for the Tamaki Makaurau by-election. And it was really great to see, you know, a good debate, a good conversation, different views. It was good to see honesty. It was good to meet Orini, who is something in her own right. I really appreciated meeting her. And Orini, if you're listening to this, put your hand up and come and talk to me. By all means, I'd like to talk to all sides. And yeah, so it was really, really good to see what a good debate can look like. And we could learn a lot, I think, from a better standard of conversation that happens in a marae where you ask tough questions and you do have those conversations. And at the end, everyone goes and has a hangi together. And we're also able to kind of like talk. We may disagree. We may agree on a lot of things and we may disagree on some things, but we're all the same team, aren't we? We are all the same team and we need to get rid of this one-term government. So there's going to be some new T-shirts coming out soon as well at the G News merch shop. Just thought I'd let you know. And we're quite excited about that. Koha is down, and it's probably because I've pinned that post on the top of the page about the shop. And it's also because it's a cost of living crisis and it's not easy for everybody. But anyway, we keep going. And we all do our best under these circumstances, don't we? So I'm just trying to think if there was anything else that we needed to discuss right now. There probably isn't, so I'll probably leave it there. But isn't this a beautiful place at Onira? Onira, the long sands of Onira, that's what the name means. And across the way there is Little Onira. I did a podcast there, and then behind me is the main beach. It's a very beautiful beach, isn't it? It looks really cool there. Anyway, I'll talk to you all again soon, and I hope you have a wonderful Monday.
Welcome to G News, the good news.
Yeah, right.